Linda Thurston, she, her pronouns, here in Brooklyn, waiting on 12 inches of snow, which in New York is like, oh my God, I grew up in New England. It's called winter. It's really not that big a deal. A foot of snow is nothing. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I come out of 3,000 different organizing movement contexts. And I forget how weird that is until I get in a room with people from completely different areas and I know them all and none of them know each other. In the 70s and the 80s, to a large degree, and perhaps somewhat into the 90s, even in the left, talking about prison abolition, people said you were crazy. It just was not the done. It was like talking about anti-apartheid in the early 70s. And people be like, Johanna, what? South Africa, who? It just was not part of the discourse, and it was considered part of why are you bothering with that. Similarly with anti-death penalty stuff, but that's partly because it got abolished and then it got unabolished. Um, so finding as I'm working at all these different organizations, trying to have a paid gig so I can send money home and all the rest of that, I ended up working in American Friends Service Committee. I ended up being the non-Quaker Quaker rep on a whole lot of church groups, which was fascinating. I ended up working at Amnesty International because my friends made me, and I told them, "You're not my friends. Why would you do that to me?" But the death penalty, the execution numbers had doubled at that point. But just a lot of little threads coming together so that when the conference happened in '98, I was like, "Thank the goddess, it's actually happening. Let's see what this turns into." So that very shortly into the work organizing Critical Resistance East, I became very sick. And they ended up leading to surgeries and hemorrhaging and a lot of vampire jokes. Linda, do you need anything? Yes, I need blood. Because I was sort of gray, I looked like a corpse. It was a mess. But it changed how I related to the organizing. It changed what I ended up doing at the conference, and it changed my life. And I basically, anybody that didn't know me before I got sick don't really know me because they know me now. But I will say, having grown up in New England, having spent many years in Boston, in a place where disabled folks don't play, don't be telling me, oh, you could go around back. No, no, no. This building's not accessible. We're not moving. We're blocking it with our wheelchair. People just didn't play. I was shocked to find out that was not the case everywhere. And it's become a more important sort of piece of my awareness and activism. And you talk about healthcare in prisons. Don't be 65 years old in a wheelchair in prison. Don't, there's people I'm mourning right now because they were not taken care of as they became old, as they became disabled for so many reasons. And then there's also people on the outside who slip away from our movements because there's not a way to remain part of it if you're having serious health problems, if you are disabled. I want to do an upside on that, which is that when I realized I couldn't make it to meetings and start running around, I ended up getting more engaged with technology, and Eric Appleton and Arif Modani. I was like, I can't get out of bed for more than 5 minutes, but I can sit at this computer and work on the website. And that has become an important part of the work that I do now, being involved with radical techies and other groups because of CR, because it was like, we're gonna find a way for you to stay in this. And that made me find a way to stay in it. And now it's like, well, of course, but it wasn't like that back then. And CR may have been a drop in the bucket of that whole awareness and movement, but the difference between the first two conferences and CR10 and after in paying attention to people's health and mental health needs and making things accessible means that when I say we need ASL interpreter, people won't say, why, do you know anybody deaf who's coming to the meeting? You won't get that anymore. And it's an important change for not just for CR, but for revolutionary movements across the board. I mean, the question of power, who's got it, who don't got it, I think has been really central to me because there is a framing of existence that says we are the powerless and we have to find a way to get the power from the people with the power. That is not, in my experience, been an assumption of CR. The assumption is we have power. We have power to take some of that additional power from some of them folks trying to wield it over us, and we need to be about doing that. And the question is, how are we going to do that? And the question tomorrow will be like, okay, that didn't work. How are we going to do it now? Or, oh, that worked really well. How are we going to do it better? The assumption that we will win, the assumption that power relationships and dynamics will change. And there's a lot I don't like. Me and my knees and my back do not like about being 62. But some of the things I like about being 62 is that I realize part of why I believe we will win is because we have. Now, all those wins didn't stick. All those wins weren't complete. Some of them fell apart the minute after we got them. But there is a usefulness, a utility to understanding that some things actually can change, particularly this last year or so when we were surrounded by so many things that were sliding back and turning completely bazonkers. So just the larger question in terms of, or a specific question in terms of, CR campaigns and all that, I'll leave to others. But I just think we need to start with, what do we understand when we say power, and what do we understand about who has it and how that changes.